Hello friends. I know it's been a minute since I've done a video about H5N1, but today is June 4th, 2025, and let's talk about what there is to know. In the US, the most devastating news is coming out of Arizona, where we went from 1 farm to 2 farms to 3 farms, losing 95% of their chickens. Both the ones for consumption and the broiler chickens, meaning the ones that produce the next generation of chickens. Accumulating in this rather devastating interview, I would go find it and watch it, because this farmer lost 6 million chickens in 2 weeks. And despite what the director of the USDA has said about wanting to let it spread through chickens because we might get more chickens to live then, this farmer said that as the dust-laden breeze moved between barns, they literally could not stop the spread of this virus from barn to barn. And they had to watch slowly, painfully, as 6 million of their chickens died over a 2-week stretch. And his question to the US government is, why don't we have the vaccine like Europe does? Because Europe has started vaccinating some of their birds, as has New Zealand. They've been using the vaccine on their most at-risk birds. Finland has been using it on their minks and their farm workers that work with minks. But of course, because we're here and we have the people that we have in charge, H5N1 bird flu is on the list of banned words that can't be published in reports and can't show up in grant applications. So it's totally going to be entirely possible to communicate information about this and study it if we ban the word. Oh, and the HHS canceled the contract with Moderna to test and license a new vaccine for H5N1, one that was already halfway through development, by the way, which is going to put us seriously behind the curveball if this does make a bigger jump to human spread. Duh. The outbreak in Indiana, which was also devastating over the spring, seems to have declined. Although this could just as easily be that they're not testing anymore. I don't know. Wisconsin began bulk testing, but given that they had earlier migration of birds this year than last year, whatever avian flu is going to get there has probably already gotten there. Except that Canada is on fire again. And if those Canadian fires get worse, birds might start migrating back south to avoid the fires, which could reseed again later this summer. Because this seems to be the biggest agricultural driver of transmission, is bird migration. And you can see that an earlier migration this year led to an earlier rise in cases. And the highest risk places are places with extreme drought. Because birds flying overhead can't tell the difference between a farmed watering pond and a lake. They just see water and they land. So places where there is more significant drought will drive birds towards the available sources of water as they migrate. So places where the drought is higher are going to have the greatest risk of birds landing in their watering ponds and spreading to their animals. So they're seeding right now in Ohio, South Dakota, so be on the lookout. Because of this massive loss in Arizona and the continued spread amongst birds and cows across the US, there's going to be fewer eggs. It also doesn't help that our migration enforcers are going to farms and taking people. So there's also fewer workers. But bonus, there's also fewer people coming here to visit, so there's less demand. But I still don't see this situation changing anytime soon. Bird flu showed up at a live bird market in New Jersey in May, resulting in the culling of 14,000 birds. New York had a similar outbreak this spring, but undercover reviews showed that despite being ordered to practice biosecurity, they weren't, which does not bode well for human-to-human transmission in the future if we refuse to protect ourselves. Whoever's running the CDC's flu social media, bless them, they are trying. They have released information about how to protect yourself when you're a worker. But again, workers who are at risk, either because of language barrier or citizenship barriers, are less likely to complain if they don't have this. They're less likely to get tested. They're less likely to access healthcare unless it is a dire situation, because they don't want to come into contact with authorities. Rightfully so at this point, when they could get deported to a country that's not their own permanently, with no way to escape. So I don't think the lack of reporting of human cases actually reflects what's going on the ground, because those are people who are not going to get tested unless they absolutely have to. And let's be honest, this administration doesn't want to know. The CDC flu, again, bless them, also advised wearing N95s and gloves and eye protection when dealing with game birds, because they're infected. Go them. On the international front, Brazil is currently experiencing an outbreak in wild birds, which showed up at one of their zoos, killing dozens of birds and potentially infecting 7 humans. Now, I can find 5 of those being ruled out, but I cannot find data about the other 2. So were they ruled out? I don't know. It is affecting trade for Brazil, with Japan, Mexico, Chile, and Uruguay refusing to import poultry. But don't worry, they're totally not going to test their cows. Because if we don't test for it, we don't know it, right? That works so well. They're also seeing the transmission of wild to backyard to commercial poultry. Argentina also reported a reassortment between H5N1 and another avian influenza. Bangladesh added 2 more human cases from an older H5N1 strain. 2 feline deaths, an outbreak at a chicken market that shut it down for 21 days, and a second child death earlier in May. Cambodia added a 6th fatality from H5N1. This one, an 11-year-old boy who became seriously ill and died, likely ingested from chicken that was undercooked, or contact with the chickens. It's not clear. But that marks the 1,000th human case since this virus was first identified in 1997. So here's the bottom line. No news about human cases in the US is not necessarily good news, because the current political climate means that people are less likely to access testing or medical care, to report symptoms, or to even access PPE to prevent spread. It's still spreading in bird farms. It's still spreading in cows. So there are still people exposed, not just in the US, but globally. Egg prices are unlikely to come down anytime soon because this continues to circulate. People are still dying of this across the globe, and the US is taking steps backwards rather than forwards to help us prepare for the inevitable. I wish I had better news, but it's very likely that high temperatures and drought, in addition to the incoming Sahara dust storm, will further spread this among cow farms and other commercial flocks. The bottom line is that pretending our problems away doesn't make them go away. Wishful thinking is just that, thinking. And without taking action, this will only get worse. Stay safe, everyone. Mask up.